call this way. Yeah. All right. It having reached the hour of 5:33, I am calling the April 12th, 2022 Modesto City Council meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Scudia Brayton.
Here.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Here.
Councilmember Ricky.
Present.
Councilmember Zalaki is absent. Councilmember Canoyer.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Mayor Zwallen.
Here. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation from Shalom Bachner from Congregation Beth Shalom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I invite everyone to take a deep breath and feel centered and grounded. And I ask that together we create a spiritual intention for this meeting. We are grateful to the beyond name oneness of the source of all life, the divine presence of many names and many peoples, and we say thank you for the gift of this day. Thank you for the many blessings in our lives. May these minutes of centering ourselves, of finding our breath, and noticing our heart and our intellect guide us as we enter into the details of tonight's agenda and duties. This Sunday is Easter. We're in the holy month of Ramadan for Islam, and this Friday night starts Passover. It is a season of renewal for all of the Abrahamic faiths. So I want to include a very quick public service announcement in this invocation. MLink, which is Multi-Faith Leaders in Community, with support from the Stanislaus County Interfaith Council, invites everyone to join us on next Monday, April 18th, Reseda Park at 6:30 p.m. to celebrate this rare and beautiful convergence of holidays and to stand in solidarity with Ukrainians. I ask that we all recommit ourselves to respectful dialogue, interfaith fellowship, building bridges across the political and ethnic divides, and engaging in acts of loving kindness. May we embrace the true diversity of this community and maintain and grow the connections and relationships that are at the heart of government, society, and the human experience. In the words of the Jewish prayer book, our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. And so we pray, and we ask that the city, its government, its leaders and advisors, and all who exercise just and rightful authority are blessed. And may all who live here dwell in goodness and blessings, respect for diversity, and work together to make this a better place and a better world for all. Amen.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Does the city clerk have any announcements?
Yes, Mayor. Emails were received at CC meetings, and those were forwarded to council.
Thank you. Received. Do any of the council members have any conflicts of interest?
And Mayor, for item 11, I know out of an abundance of caution, the vice mayor will be recusing himself as an insurance agent. He does provide insurance to one of the partners of one of the companies being selected for civil engineering services. Again, not related to this contract, but this is just out of an abundance of caution, and that's item 11.
Thank you. Okay. Will the city attorney report out on closed session?
Yes, Mayor. The council did consider existing litigation and also labor negotiations during closed session today. No reportable action was taken.
Thank you. Next is acknowledgments and presentations. We have the presentation of proclamation proclaiming April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day. I will read the proclamation. As the world continues to live through the COVID-19 pandemic, we are reminded of the extraordinary importance of maintaining a clean and healthy environment. And the global community faces challenges such as health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles. And all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth and opportunity. And the City of Modesto encourages its residents to reduce, reuse, recycle, and properly dispose of waste, and through voluntary action, help to keep our community clean and beautiful, and restore and maintain a healthy environment. And this year marks the 52nd anniversary of Earth Day, and the City of Modesto encourages all businesses, institutions, and individuals to celebrate the Earth and commit to caring for the planet and its resources. Now, therefore, Mayor Suze Wallen, City of Modesto, hereby proclaim April 22, 2022 as Earth Day and encourage our residents to participate in programs and activities that promote an understanding of environmental protection, climate change, and the need to create a healthier, safer, and more equitable future for all people, dated this 11th day of April, 2022. And at this time, we have Rosine Salmo that will do a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Rosine Salmo, Integrated Waste Program Manager with the Public Works Department. Thank you for your time this evening, and I welcome all of you to attend in partnership with the City of Modesto and the OB Green O'Brien's Market Recycling event in celebration of Earth Day on Saturday, April 23rd at the O'Brien's Market in Roseburg Square. This is a convenient drive-through event where all recyclables donated are matched dollar for dollar by O'Brien's Market. 100% of the funds are applied to the City of Modesto Adopt a Park program, which is currently raising money for the Awesome Spot playground. the area's first inclusive playground. Also available is paper shredding and e-waste collection. On behalf of the City of Modesto, I would like to encourage all of you to commit to making one small change in an effort to reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost. This year we will celebrate Modesto's Earth Day Festival on a smaller scale as we transition to a large public outdoor event in the upcoming future. At this time, I would like to welcome Marlene Chaplin to say a few words about the Awesome Spot Playground and present her with a $2,000 check for this project. This money came from collecting bottles and cans throughout the city. Marlene?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rosine. I have something for each of you, if that's, may I approach?
Sure. We will come down there to give the proclamation, so you don't even have to.
so
Okay,
I
that'd
can-
be great.
So I can give you that. These are bags, and I usually don't have that much to say, but today I do. And I've left my glasses where... Rosine, thank you so very much. I got to be, this is her first city council meeting and her first time doing a presentation. So I'm very privileged for her wonderful words and the opportunity. Council members, thank you for the most auspicious proclamation of Earth Day during what I can only humbly acknowledge as the most likely week, Holy Week, to honor our Lord's incredible first creation, the earth. I'm also honored to have this opportunity to thank each of you, as well as all of the amazing people I have had the pleasure of working with over my long and very rewarding partnership with the City of Modesto, Neighborhood Preservation Unit, Integrated Waste Program, and various recycling programs to not only elevate local awareness for recycling, but also bring cool parks like Virginia Corridor and the Dog Park, Western Ranch, and now the Awesome Spot Playground to life. On behalf of the O'Brien family of O'Brien's Markets, who couldn't be here tonight, as they are burying their patriarch of their family, Francis O'Brien, at Arlington this week. The Awesome Spot Playground team, also including Chad Kennedy, the Awesome Spot Playground designer for Odell Engineering, Rachel Laredo, who I call the Park Mom. She's inspired by her son Tommy to get this built, and Kelly Gloria is another core people, as well as the Boyette family and Boyette Petroleum, who funded the first version of Be Green. And finally, the thousands, and I mean thousands, of donors, supporters, and volunteers over the years who have supported and continue to support Earth Day and our tiny but significant effort to be green. Thank you. I'd also like to personally invite you, as Rosine so wonderfully did, to join us on April 23rd out there at Roseburg Square. It is definitely not the Earth Day Festival, but we're gonna make it fun. And it's drive-through, so it's very convenient. And if you happen to know any building contractors, we are in full tilt boogie getting bids for the Awesome Spot because we're starting construction. And thank you so much, council members, White, Wright, and Kanoyer. They've been coming. All of you, Mayor Whalen, all of you. We're in the bid process, so if you know anyone who hasn't already bid, Valley Builders Exchange has all the documents and plans. We are definitely going to be taking bids, I think, up until Friday. So if you know somebody who'd like to participate, it'll be a blessing to their company like nothing they've ever participated in. And good evening, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Council members, if you'd join me, we will present the proclamation.
It's finally awesome. going through it, aren't you?
Yes, good to see you too. Yeah.
Here,
I would love it. We'll put it up at O'Brien's.
yeah.
Great.
We'll put it up in there.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Maureen. Right. Next is item 2, Poem of the Month by Poet Laureate Salvatore Salerno, and he is here on Zoom, I believe. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
But you can't see me.
I see your face in your photo that's on your screen.
Okay, that's good enough. Good evening, and to the mayor and city council members, thank you for inviting me to read one of my laureate poems. And this is titled King Kennedy Memorial Center. Not an imposing building for passers-by, it presents from the street in modest tan stucco with a flourish of colorful murals beside. But its character comes from the names on the wall. Dr. King's God was of a fair, equal justice in a country where all would divine to be free. His preaching left church and took to the streets, where those who believed placed their bodies in civil and calm courage against bigotry. That wave of peaceful resistance rolled up to the Lincoln Memorial, White House, and beyond. A truth force unleashed that could never be stilled. Kennedy worshiped the laws of equal justice inside the courts and up to the citadels of power. His target was the fruition of true civil rights, equality in schools, at work, and on the streets, with protections for all as his constant aim. He brought Lincoln's pledge closer to form a union ever evolving towards King's moral universe, the force of compassion that could not be stilled. King and Kennedy, on parallel tracks of fate, were martyred by cowardly weapons of hate. What's the abiding value of people's names? That lives on from their character and deeds. What these men achieved remains, a firm cornerstone of whatever is built in their honor. Let those who would enter this public place, whether the servers or those who are served, remember the civic spirit of those two men and work towards securing their own good names.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here and sharing with us.
Thank you.
All right. Next is public comment period. This is a time for anyone that wishes to speak on any item under public comment, and this is for items not on the council agenda. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. I have 2 cards for people that are in person. It looks like one is for something that's not on the agenda, and one regarding utilities is on the agenda. So is Terry Hopkins here? Welcome.
I am back. And I am still speaking on the unsafe roadways on Orangeburg Avenue. Now, I don't want this thing to get kicked down the road as it has been for the past 10 or 12 years. As I said last week, I've been a homeowner here for 16 years. And in 16 years, I've lost 10 automobiles to drunk and reckless drivers on our street. Now, every time I get a vehicle that's damaged, insurance doesn't pay you much for that. They cover the cost of paying off the vehicle, and if there's anything left, you get that. And each time I've had to come out of my pocket, go into sometimes my supplemental pension just to get another vehicle. Multiply that by 10. Multiply it by 10. You know, and in talking with my neighbor, one of the council members, and I'm not sure of the name because I don't remember, but you found out about the accidents to her vehicles just by calling by chance regarding trees in her yard. She expressed the concern of the cars being wrecked, but here it's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard anything about it. So who cares? I could care less if every tree in the yard gets cut down. It don't matter. I don't need a tree in my yard. I need vehicles to stay out of my yard. And I need somebody to do something about it. I will be here every time there's a meeting until we get something done. I'll be meeting with Modesto B and other news media, social media, but until we get something done, I will be here. You know, it's kind of ironic that you open up with prayer and the scripture. And I believe the Bible talks about a widow woman who had an adversary, an oppressor. And she continued to go to that judge until that judge said, look, if I don't do something, she's going to worry me half to death. And he sought to her need. I'm going to be that widow woman. I need you to do something about the situation. Or come to my neighborhood, come and park your vehicle in my driveway between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Just park there and then back out and see if you can. Experience what we're experiencing. And it brings our property value down. I can't in good faith sell that property to somebody else, knowing the potential of damage or even possible death that could occur. How could I do that? How could I? What would you do if it were your property? That's all I'm asking. What would you do if it were yours? Would you walk your children, your grandchildren? I have a 3-year-old daughter. I walk her through her little tricycle during the evening when it's cool. But I have to worry about some moron doing something foolish. So this is a sore spot for me. I would appreciate if the council would take it serious, because I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online for public comment? And we have another person in person also. 2 people in person, but, all right. Ramon Rodriguez?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here today to speak about Trevor Stewart Day coming up on April 24th. We gotta remember his name. We don't want to push his presence in our hearts and memories forever. We gotta remember him for what he does in the community. And also, I'm here still holding the cops accountable, because also on another case for Alonso Nunes, I felt like that the officers weren't held accountable, because I saw the video a couple of times and also read on the media, on the newspaper, that he said that Alonso started resisting arrest, but that is not true. I watched the video over and over again, and I never seen him resist. All he was doing is he was defending himself from being brutally beaten. And all because of that officer who came to his house trying to arrest him. He spoke English instead of Spanish. And yes, now he got a no contest plea deal. The officers are still on the job like that never happened, and they got like a slap in the wrist, never being held accountable, and now Alonso's got a felony for something he did not do. Of course, I cannot talk about his criminal case, but his rights been violated. And that's what I've been talking for over a year now. And you know what's going to happen? If these officers, again, were to beat another person again, they're going to end up being another Joseph Manteca, which will be bad for Modesto. It'll provide a really negative image on the police, despite that they want to work hard to improve community relations. And back to Trevor again. He's but same age. he has really good potential to be a valued member of society, and I can tell that he's all-around person to be around with friends, family, and his life is taken away soon, all because of that cop who was never held accountable. And the DA did not do anything. She let him fly by without being held accountable. And guess what happened? In the period of 10 years, Trevor was the 5th victim. I think he died. And thank God he was facing charges, but still, he needs to face murder charges because he violated AB 392. So, anyways, justice for Trevor Seaver and justice for Alonso Nunes. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Allen?
Good evening. There was a phrase in the gentleman's invocation earlier, and I'm definitely not going to be able to quote it correctly, but it was something to the effect of an acknowledgement to right and just authority. And that's basically what I'm here to talk to you about real quick this evening. And there's two things I'm quite concerned about because I don't feel like I can use that phrase to describe the leadership of this city and the leadership in this county. Last summer, the Proud Boys took over this chamber and made it into an absolute circus. Despite the inaccurate reporting in the Modesto Bee that depicted it as a two-sided situation, I was one of the people yelling, right? This was well after. You did not enforce the rules of this room, Mayor Zwalin, and those circus clowns turned this room into a circus, straight up. They directly intimidated Darlene, the mother of a victim of a murderous police officer in this town. It was a disgusting event. That day, the president of the Modesto chapter said that he has they have several friends within Modesto Police Department. I have asked Chief Gillespie on several occasions if he can either verify that or deny it. He doesn't want to talk about it. I think that's disgusting. This group is a terrorist organization in Canada, has received some consideration of a similar declaration in the U.S. Everybody knows what they stand for. They are like committing violent attacks all over the place. Right now, trans lives are under attack from these insane far-right hate mongers. And I do want to say thank you very, very much, Sue, for your declaration in support of the trans community in our area. It's kind of scary if you pay attention to what goes on. And we need that. We absolutely need for you guys to take a stand. You do the recognitions out here on the floor. Last year, there was one where some people got an award for interfering with the police doing their duties, except for they jumped in to help them. And I just was like baffled that we give them awards. If I went over there and saw something going on and I just jumped in to help the police, I'd be in jail, right? I mean, that's an obvious reality. I want to ask you to take a stand. We have a sheriff that meets behind closed doors with the group that the Modesto Bee didn't want to even report on, but I know that they have common membership with the Proud Boys and with 3%ers. Both of those groups were involved with January 7th at the Capitol. I urge you to use that same influence that I see you wielding in so many occasions to stand up for the people in your community, whether or not they have influence, power, or money. Trevor Seaver was clearly murdered by one of your police officers, the 5th life taken by this disgusting man. He needs to be tried with murder. He does not need to be let off with a slap on the wrist. It's a shame to this community. I would invite you to embrace Trevor Seaver Day, April 24th, regardless of your refusal to make it official. Please stand for the people in this community who need your support. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next online, we have Darlene Ruiz.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Sue and City Council for allowing me this platform to speak. Obviously, I'm calling on regards of my son, Trevor Seaver. I know it's not official, but I'm asking everybody in Modesto if they could honor Trevor for Trevor Seaver Day on April 24th in honor and memory of Trevor, to please do a random act of kindness and pay it forward. Please help us spread love and kindness in our community. Remember, there's no such thing as a small act of kindness. Every act creates a ripple with no logic end. I know that Trevor was taken from us horrifically on December 29th. I just want people to remember Trevor other than that day of December 29th, the person he was for 29 years, and honor and try to bring something positive instead of the horrific murder that happened to Trevor, and bring our community together and try to spread love and kindness and honor and memory of Trevor. I'm also asking if people will come out May 5th for the prelim of Joseph LaMantia and demand murder charges be upheld in court. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Emerson Drake.
There we go. Good evening, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. Several times I've requested that the standing city council committees be recorded, since it's just hitting a button when we're doing Zoom, and left online for people to see. Unfortunately, the city doesn't have the gumption to go ahead and follow through. Apparently, there's things they would prefer to have hidden. At the committee and the safety and communities meeting, excuse me, yesterday, there was a report about the American Rescue Plan. During the committee meeting, I requested a copy of the information that we're putting up, plus what was added in another presentation. Well, that's gone unresponded. So I called today to the city manager's office and made that basic same request, and got no phone calls back, quite honestly. I heard nothing. So I thought, well, maybe they're busy. I can appreciate that. So I went back and looked at the Economic Development Committee on 4/4 a week ago. They got basically the same presentation, and I looked in the minutes of that meeting, and there's nothing there. I'm not suggesting they've changed it already, but I don't understand why, especially when you're not recording it, you're not putting all the information out there. There has to be a reason. I don't believe it's laziness, but there's some reason that the city manager's office doesn't make sure these get on the minutes of the meeting from a week ago, and those minutes are already up. Now, I don't know if you can explain it to me or not, to my satisfaction in any case, but why are we not recording these meetings, putting them up so anybody can see them at any time? I guess we're just trying to hold off until we can go back to regular meetings and not record those either. I think recording standing committee meetings, they're agendized. There were 4 council members at the one yesterday for a period of time. There's no reason that we're not recording those for the public to see. I thank you for your time, and I'd like to pull from the consent item, pull number 4 and pull number 10. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Number 4 and number 10. Is that what you heard? Okay. All righty. Next we have in person Julius Young. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilmen, Councilwomen. I guess my issue is pretty simple. It deals with a dog license. And I have all the documentation, flow charts, which I can share with them.
That would be great if you would pass them. Edgar, would you mind receiving those?
Brief history, it's been a year or so when I was able to get a dog from the shelter on Cornucopia, paid all the fees. Came time to renew the rabies and the vaccination. I sent the check to DocuPet in Syracuse, 11/21. In the past month or two, I've been getting late fees and assessments. I called DocuPet in Syracuse, and they told me I need to contact the agency here in town, because DocuPet just clears the payments, but it's up to the agency in Modesto to notice it. And when I called the agency in Modesto, they told me to go back and call DocuPet, because they're in charge of handling. I sent them a certified registered letter on, I believe it was the 4th or 5th of this month. 3 or 4 days later, I get a backdated reply from the animal agency. I think it's almost the last page. It's now almost $400 in administrative fees for an $8 license. When I contacted my bank, we did a 6-month research. The check has yet to clear. It's left hand, right hand. I'm just caught in the middle. I think all the documentation is there. I'll be 76. I'm retired. I don't have too much to do except take care of the dog that owns me. I only write like 1 check a month, and I don't know what to do. But I think $400 in penalties when I was making a mortgage payment. Any late payment wasn't that high. You know, it's only an $8 licensing fee. When I mailed in the vaccination for the rabies, it's good for 2 years. I don't know, but if I could have some assistance.
Sure.
And maybe if we could backstep a couple of steps and we can start this again, and I can send a certified registered check now. You know, that's the only adventure I have today besides waking up and getting home and taking care of my dog.
Great. I'm going to suggest that you give your information to our deputy here, Allison Van Gilbert. And I do have the information, but any information that you can help, and we can get back to you to assist you.
I mean, it was life is good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank all of you.
Appreciate that. All right, next online, we have Ray Ruiz.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. I'm just kind of piggybacking on Ramon and Steve and my wife, Darlene, on April 24th. And it being Trevor Seaver Day. You know, I was Trevor's stepfather. I had the privilege of only knowing him for 12 or 13 years. He was a tremendous individual. It saddens me that so few people in this town know what happened to Trevor and how tragically we lost him at such a young age. You know, he was one of the foremost respected referees in the area, and it's unbelievable how much time and effort he put into young kids as far as Pop Warner football and helping them learn and helping young referees become refs. He was just somebody that always wanted to do something for somebody else. And kudos to my wife, who, you know, lost her son way too early. And, you know, on April 24th, we don't want it to be justice for Trevor, though we want justice for Trevor. But on April 24th would have been his 31st birthday. And we'd love it for somebody to do an act of kindness, a kind gesture for somebody that day. I know my wife's going to do, she didn't say it, 31 kind acts, which I'm sure she'll do a lot more than that. But we'd just like to everybody to remember Trevor for the person that he was, how we tragically lost him way too early. April 24th. Do something nice. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. I have 2 other blue cards, but they look like they're items that are on the agenda, so you will certainly have your opportunity to speak when those items come forward. That's the most helpful. All right, next we will, well, I'll double check. Is there anyone else here that would like to come forward and speak under public comment time? And I do not see anyone else online. All right, next, will the city clerk please read the consent items?
Yes, Mayor. Item 3, consider approving the minutes from the April 5th, 2022 council meeting. Item 4 has been pulled from consent. Item 5, consider accepting fiscal year 2022-2023 engineer's annual report for landscape maintenance assessment district number 1 for the Dry Creek Meadows subdivisions numbers 1 through 6, declaring intention to levy and collect assessments for landscape maintenance assessment district number 1 for the Dry Creek Meadows subdivisions numbers 1 through 6, and setting a public hearing on June 28th, 2022 to consider the fiscal year 2022-23 levy and collection of assessments with landscape maintenance assessment district number 1. Item number 6, consider accepting the fiscal year 2022-23 engineer's annual report for the LMAD district number 2 for Dry Creek Meadows subdivisions number 7 through 10, Creekwood Meadows subdivisions, and the Yosemite Meadows subdivisions units 1 and 2. Notice of intention to levy and collect assessments for landscape maintenance assessment district number 2 for the Dry Creek Meadows subdivisions number 7 through 10, Creekwood Meadows subdivisions, and Yosemite Meadows subdivisions units 1 and 2, and setting a public hearing on June 28th, 2022 to consider the fiscal year 2022-23 levy and collection assessments within the LMAD district number 2. Item number 7, consider accepting the fiscal year 2022-23 engineer's annual report for the Shackelford Landscaping and Lighting District. Notice of intention to levy and collect assessments for the Shackelford Landscape and Lighting District, and setting a public hearing on June 28th, 2022 to consider the fiscal year 2022-23 levy and collection of assessments within the Shackelford Landscape and Lighting District. Item number 8, consider approving a grant agreement with California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, Urban and Community Forestry, California Climate Investments Grant Program in the amount of $557,420 for a 4-year period for the completion of Urban Forest Management Plan. Item number 9, consider accepting the plans and specifications for the rebid plant structural improvements project and awarding a construction contract to Caliber Contracting Services of Fresno, California in the amount of $2,516,700 plus $302,004 in contingency if needed, for a total amount not to exceed $2,818,704, approving an increase in the director's authority from 8% to 12% to issue change orders, approving an agreement with Carollo Engineers for engineering support during construction in the amount of $100,000 plus $10,000 in additional services if needed, for a total amount not to exceed $110,000, and amending the fiscal year 2021-22 capital improvement projects budget in the amount of $2,026,195. Item 10 was pulled from consent. Item number 11, consider approving a pre-qualified local consultant list for...
Should we hold on 11 since David is recusing himself, and then we'll come back with that one and vote separately after he leaves the room?
He doesn't need to leave the room because it's consent.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Excuse me, that's just the way we did it on the school board. I'm sorry, that's what I'm used to. He does not need to leave the room?
And I'll just explain it. On consent calendar items, no, because there's no discussion.
Okay.
If there were discussion or if it got pulled for discussion, then yes, he would leave the room.
Okay, thank you. Please continue. Thanks, Dana.
Do you want me to go ahead and read it anyway?
No, we need a separate vote.
Okay.
Move to approve all consent
we're
items
done? Okay.
except 4, 10, and 11.
Thank you. Second. All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Canoyer and a second by Vice Mayor Wright. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Councilmember Escudia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Mayor Zwallen?
Aye. So it carries 6-0 with 1 absent. We will go back to item 4.
You want me to do 11 first?
Sure. All right, item 11. Let's do that.
Do you want me to read it? Okay. Item 11, consider approving a pre-qualified local consultant list for civil engineering services for various capital improvement program projects for a period of 1 year with the possibility of 2 additional 1-year extensions at the written approval of the Utilities Department Director.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Escudia-Brayton and a second by Councilmember Ricky. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Okay. Councilmember Escudia-Brayton? Aye. Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Mayor Zwallen?
Aye. So it carries 5-0 1 absent, and 1 abstention. All right. So now I will go back to consent item 4. Consider approving an increase to the purchase order with Kate Trumpeter Consulting for continued facilitation services for the Forward Together initiative by $17,303 from $49,460 for a revised amount not to exceed $66,763. And we have Kalua Barnes with us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Kalua Barnes, retiring Deputy City Manager. This one project remains on my plate, and that is the Forward Together initiative. So what we have before you tonight is actually a request from the consultants for additional funding based on our learning during this process, that it actually has taken more meetings and more of their time to do it. As you all may know, there are 3 ad hocs, 1 on accountability, 1 on policies and procedure, and a 3rd one on alternative response models. The group is actually pretty close to forming draft recommendations, and the chair is working on an executive summary. Our plan at this point with additional funding is actually to take this project across the finish line by taking the preliminary recommendations that are being formed and vetting them through some mechanism of community engagement. We haven't quite figured out what that will look like, and then ideally to the council for consideration June, July timeframe. And some of the things that actually added to the length and the need for this is we introduced during this process, some of the meetings and the topics actually took 2 meetings instead of 1. And then we also added the simulator opportunity, which was 3 weekends, I think, or three or four different dates.
I have a couple concerns about this. One, of course, is the one that's been stated by myself and others several times. You know, this part of this issue is created because of the Trevor Seaver incident. His shooting, I guess I should just put it plainly, his unfortunate death. And when you have a family member come in to work through some of the issues that the city has, of someone who could be easily argued help create this situation in the long run, I first of all, I have to question that. But secondly, when you have, you know, if you were a contractor, this would be called a contractor change order. Only this time it's the contractor writing the change order because of incompetence. We gave them a list of things they were supposed to do, a timeline that they said they could do them in, and now they come back and want more money. Now, I won't call this lowballing, though maybe others would. I'm going to suggest that how much more are we going to continue to give? They come up with good ideas for us to spend more of our money to give to them. I just don't see this. I see this as questionable competence from the city council, questionable competence from, let's just go with all people involved. You know, it's just, how many times are we going to go back in, take some more money out of the till and pay them because, hey, I've got another idea, let's go do something else. So, okay, just pay me more for that. That's exactly what we're doing here. I just don't understand it. I don't think some of the people who live in Modesto understand it either. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Any other comments from the public? I don't see any in person or online. Any comments from council? Seeing none, Councilmember Ricky.
So when we first launched this thing, I wasn't sure we'd really be able to get to a really good result. There were some really strong opinions on both sides of the issue. And so I was a little skeptical, and I, just lots of reasons to wonder like how well this thing would do. And when I look at the work that this group has produced so far, it has far exceeded my expectations, and I had really high expectations of what I hoped it would do. So I think that, the fact that these guys ran through their contract isn't terribly surprising. I mean, it was an incredible amount of work. It was a huge hill to climb. And so I think that the right thing to do here is to finish this job. It's the best thing for our community. We need to make sure that our police department and the community have good ways to communicate, and that we set, based on the past and what has happened, we set ourselves in the right direction. So this is the right thing to do. And so I support this idea.
Thank you. Councilmember Madrigal?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just following up on Councilmember Ricky's comments. And I appreciate the speaker's analogy to change orders when it comes to the infrastructure, for example, projects that I think he was referring to. When I look at what we're investing our money in and how much money we as a city spend on all kinds of other consultants, where then, I'll speak for myself, me as a council member, you know, I get pushback, I'll put it mildly, I get feedback from people in the community about why are you spending all this money on these consultants and you don't achieve anything. Being able to then to say to constituents that we are investing in improving community and police relations going forward with this initiative is something that I haven't gotten pushback on. It's something that community members say, well, good. And this is a kind of investment that just to, I guess, agree with my colleague here, that we definitely need to see through. And so putting it into perspective with all the other investments that we make as a city and all the other expenditures that we make, this expenditure and this investment in, I'm going to say, community, and I guess you could say the quality of life and the continued collective desire to have safety in the community, safety of our officers, and improve relations, I think is an investment that's well worth it. And so it's for those reasons I'll be supporting the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seeing no other council comments, we have a resolution approving an increase to the purchase order with Kate Trumpeter Consulting for continued facilitation services for the Forward Together initiative by $17,303 from $49,460 for a revised amount not to exceed $66,763, and authorizing the purchase manager or her designee to increase the purchase order. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Wright and a second by Councilmember Madrigal. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Councilmember Scudia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor Zwollen?
Aye. Carries 6-0 with one absence. Thank you, Kalua.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, on to item 10. Consent item 10. Consider approving a second amendment to the agreement with NV5 of Manteca, California for construction management, testing, and inspection services for the Del Rio Tank Number 14, Well 68, and Pump Station project in an amount not to exceed $35,328 for an amended total amount not to exceed $1,235,020. And welcome. We'll have a staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Jesse Franco, Utilities Engineering Division Manager. This item was at the request of our consultant, NV5, who's the construction management firm overseeing the project. NV5 provides not only construction management, inspection services for that project. Initially, we had engaged with the initial contract with NV5 to provide construction management services. During the progression of the project, it was determined that the project includes a tank, well, and booster pump. And during the course of construction, it was determined that this facility required a treatment system. And so staff initiated with the design consultant to get a treatment system designed. Meanwhile, we had a very tight time frame based on, I think, some of the commitments we had made with the Del Rio community, and so we issued the change order, presented that through council, and got the change order approved. That required additional construction management services, which resulted in the first amendment with NV5. And then as the project continued through construction, unfortunately there was some impacts and delays and unforeseen conditions that were encountered during the commissioning and testing of the well site, which further elongated the project schedule. And so ordinarily when a construction management puts together a scope scope of services, they base it on a construction window or what the total construction project time span is. And so in this case, since the project went further, additional services were required to see us through the testing and commissioning of that facility. And so we initially had targeted the end of December of 2020. That project expanded into early 2021, and therefore NV5 had requested additional compensation for the scope of services throughout that time frame.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from council members? Seeing none, comments from the public? Emerson Drake? Emerson, you're on mute. Are you able to unmute?
Thought I did the second time, okay?
We can hear you now.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
You know, admittedly, I'm cheap. But when I look at spending money up in Del Rio, I have to question, why don't we just sell them the tank and the whole water system that they use? They're never coming into the city of Modesto. We're never going to recoup that 1.2 million. It's gone. They pay the same amount of water for water as I do. Only I have to pay an extra percentage on top of it because I have the privilege of living in the city of Modesto. They, on the other hand, are getting this handed to them after, admittedly, that they sued us, if I'm not mistaken. But why are you asking the citizens of Modesto to continue forking out money for these other people? I realize they're wealthy and you have them on your boards. You seem to love that Forward Together committee that we just talked about. They were there, but they're not Modesto citizens. Why is I asked my neighbors, do you want to spend extra money for Del Rio, a gated community? They look at you like you're crazy. Now, I'm sure nobody's called the city council members to say that. Yes, right. I don't understand. We've gotten rid of water systems before and tried. We don't need the Del Rio system. The average citizens of Modesto are carrying their water for them. We're paying more than they are for the privilege. Our water is actually higher because we have them like an albatross hanging on our neck. I think at some point in time, this council needs to be fiscally responsible. And before I run out of time, just to make, because you guys got a second bite at the apple, I don't get that, the public doesn't get that opportunity. I just hope on the last consent item that you haven't spent money for magic beans, because we all know the change needed to be implemented. You're telling us this is the change that will work. If you're wrong, you'll be carrying Marley's change from Scrooge. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments from council members? Right. Seeing none, we have a resolution approving a second amendment to the agreement with NV5 of Manteca, California for construction management and inspection services for the Del Rio Tank number 14, well number 68, and pump station project in an amount not to exceed $35,328 for an amended total not to exceed $1,235,020, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the amendment. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve consent item 10.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Knoyer, a second by Councilmember Escutia-Brayton. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Escutia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Knoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Mayor Zwollen?
Aye. Carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Franco.
6-0.
Oh, excuse me, 6-0. 1 absent. Thank you for that correction. All right. Do any of the council members have any comments and reports? Councilmember Knoyer.
Yes. It seems like I'm always coming back to everyone regarding a health issue, probably because of my age and just people wondering when I don't show up if I'm ever going to show up. So the reason why I wasn't here last Tuesday is that I had cataract surgery. They did both eyes at the same time, so it made it very difficult for me to be able to come and see, and it's getting better. And I just want to thank everyone for their prayers, for the rides they give me, for the people that bring food to my home. I just can't thank our community enough for what they do for me, and the 9 years I've spent here has just been worth it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to applaud Modesto City Schools for placing the largest order of electric buses that particular bus company had ever had. And I also want to give a shout out to Stanislaus RTA for accepting a grant to explore how to electrify our regional transit system. So that's exciting. I like the better direction that we're going here, and I'm hopeful we can continue it, especially with Earth Day coming up. Another thing I want to talk about was my wife and I would take our 3-year-old to the park at least a couple times a week. And I'm going to tell you like what all of us already know, but our park bathrooms are just disgusting. So my wife are sitting there in the park, and we're just trying to figure out, a safe way to get our kid to the bathroom the next time we go to the park. Because, of course, every time you take your 3-year-old to the park, he has to use the bathroom, And that's things that parents need to think about, And that's when I realized that we have a park already, we have a group that already kind of cleans up our city every single day. And I know Modesto's budget's challenged, but when budgets are challenged, we need to innovate. And this group that is already out there cleaning every day, they're also changing lives, and they're the most successful homeless program that we have. It's the Downtown Street Team. So I think what we should really strongly consider doing is creating what I'd call the Downtown Parks Team. It obviously wouldn't just clean up bathrooms and graffiti in downtown. It would be lots of our parks, but I think that they would be very qualified and great at doing it. And I think it would also pay the dividend that when they see someone maybe that's lost their way, that finds themselves in one of these, one of our parks, they can talk to them and say like, look, I used to be where you are. I can help show you the way, And so it's like, I think a really good way to marry a whole lot of the problems that our community is having together, and try to, a lot of times when you have issues like this, they're overlapping, And so like, I think it'd be a good way to try to, bring people back into the fold and get some movement, not only just on bathrooms, but also on our homeless issues. Finally, I just want to cover an issue that I keep hearing about in the public, and that's how we do public presentations at these meetings. In the last month, I've had 3 requests from groups that want to give presentations at council for, I think, things that are pretty important. I know that Councilmember Madrigal wanted a presentation on cameras. That's a presentation I saw that I think the public could have really benefited from. Another one was about homelessness that wasn't able to get through, and then there was one about climate change. But to me, I think this body needs to be one that listens to the community and then is able to act on suggestions from the community. So I'm hopeful that we can find ways to maybe do like, I don't know, a 10-minute presentation at meetings so that we can hear from our community more. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Madrigal?
A couple of things, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to share, not a moment of silence, but just wanted to share that my friend and one of my volunteer field representatives, Sebastian Jones, lost his sister-in-law he had a funeral last week for her, and I had the honor and privilege of saying a few words at her funeral. So I just want to, I'm not sure if we adjourn meetings in memory of anyone, but just wanted to say Mary Sally, the owner of the Stanislaus Foster Care Foundation's work dealing with foster kids, will never be forgotten. her legacy and her impact on our community and on the lives of these kids that she worked with, helping place them, feeding them and their families, will never be forgotten. So thank you, Mary Sally, for all you did for our community, Modesto and countywide. Also wanted to say I'm really excited about this parks idea. What do you call it? A downtown parks team. I mean, if we could bring something like that that's creative. I already receive a lot of positive feedback from folks about the Downtown Streets team, especially for the folks that don't know about it. When they complain to me and they say, why don't you guys just like hire the homeless to clean up? And I'm able to very happily say, actually, we already did. And it's called the Downtown Streets team. And they say, well, all right then. And then that's kind of, you know, we don't really get pats on the back for stuff like that when we do. We just kind of get, you know, fingers pointed at us and whatnot when folks aren't happy. At least I do. I don't know about y'all. But being able to have an extension or another arm of the Downtown Streets team that provides that kind of cleaning in our city parks, Councilmember Ricky, I'm so excited. I don't want to make a motion requesting that we put it on a future agenda. Hopefully staff hears the message loud and clear, or puts it on the appropriate policy committee, such as safety and communities, as something to explore, possibly with, say, the next round of American Rescue Plan Act funding, ARPA funding, as they call it. That'd be exciting. I was also hoping you might bring up the issue of the safe parking, but I still look forward to seeing that. And I appreciate you bringing up the issue of the request that I've been making to have a reported presentation about the video surveillance cameras to help combat illegal trash dumping in our neighborhoods. Definitely would be a presentation that I'm hoping it's safe to say maybe this, even the folks that are here in the council audience and watching online would welcome being able to get an update on what is happening with those video cameras that they said they were going to install at places where they, you know, do a lot of illegal trash dumping, so we can catch those people. I hope that staff can create a space where we can just have sort of a, I guess, dare I say, a presentation on presentations at policy committees. I think there's no such thing as too much presentation and information to the public about the work that the city's doing, so that if folks do miss it at the policy meetings, policy committee meetings, such as Finance Committee, Economic Development Committee, Safety and Communities Committee, and so on, that they can get an update here on those presentations that were made, and maybe even space them out. Last but not least, I didn't write it down, and so I forgot. Darn. Anyway,
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments from council members or reports? I will make a brief announcement that I will be doing my first State of the City address this Thursday, day after tomorrow, at our Center Plaza. That's not correct. Center Plaza. Is that the correct? Okay, got it. I always think of Plaza, I think out in front here.
Don't change it.
So doors will open at 11:30. My talk will begin at 12:15, and the program will be complete by 12:45, with the notion that if people are working downtown or somewhere else, they can join us and during their lunch break, hopefully, and still be home in the evening with their families. And it will be planned well, and I'm sure that anyone that comes will enjoy that. And we've put a lot of effort into it, so we welcome anyone to join us on Thursday, day after tomorrow. All right. Seeing no other comments, we will go on to City Manager comments and reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real briefly, I'd like to welcome Allison Van Gilder to our team. She joins us as the Deputy City Manager, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Welcome, Allison.
Mayor, may I please say something to you before you guys continue anymore at all. Please use those speakers to where everyone can hear you. Yes, Jenny and I are older, but I'm sure there's other in here who cannot hear you. It's hard for me to hear up here.
Okay,
Those guys
so
can
in the
up there.
spirit of this message, would you come and speak in the microphone so that everyone can hear what you just said? Thank you.
Yes, I gladly will.
Okay.
My name's Loretta Card. Yes, I love coming down here and listening to you guys. Jenny and I are older, but we need to hear you. These guys in here cannot hear. When I heard him, he sounds like he's whispering little. Every once in a while, he speaks up, but very seldom. Some people do not know how to use a speaker, but please try and do so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is unfinished business. We will go to item 12. Consider accepting the City of Modesto's Project Home Key 2.0 grant award of $3,973,353 for the project located at 1208 9th Street. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Mayor Zwallen. Council, my name is Jessica Hill. I'm the Community Development Manager. I am very excited to bring this item before you today of a Project Home Key Award from the state of California for just over $3.9 million. So to kind of set the stage a bit, I wanted to show kind of the history of homelessness in Stanislaus County. So as you can see, for the last 7 years, our homeless population, both sheltered and unsheltered, has increased. Based on our last count in 2021, there was 2,927 homeless individuals, 316 of those being homeless youth. So the city's partnered previously with Center for Human Services in the purchase and rehabilitation of their Youth Navigation Center. This Youth Navigation Center opened in October 2021 as a main navigation center and service hub for those individuals 13 to 25 who are in crisis, experiencing housing instability or homelessness. The Youth Navigation Center hosts 3 different types of beds there. There is a Hutton House, which is 8 beds. They have their Pathways program there, which is transitional housing for youth, which is 15 beds. And then they have a low barrier shelter, which is 24 beds. In addition to that, they offer the above services, which include street outreach, diversion, coordinated entry, education, and employment. To date, I wanted to kind of highlight some of their successes. They've been able to move 316 young people. 43 of them have gone into the low barrier shelter. 16 of them have transitioned to transitional housing, and 14 to permanent housing. And I wanted to kind of set the stage a bit because there's still a huge need for more permanent housing for our entire homeless population, but especially our youth. So when Project Home Key was announced by the state, Project Home Key is a $750 million program with the aim of helping local communities rapidly acquire and rehabilitate different commercial buildings, hotel motels, to assist those who are experiencing homelessness. On the first launch of the program, there were 94 projects statewide to produce 6,000 permanent housing units. So due to the success of this program, last fiscal year, the governor allocated $1.4 billion to Project Home Key 2.0. The applications were available in late September 2021 and were accepted on a rolling basis until the funds were exhausted. As part of this eligibility, the individual had to be homeless and under 30% of the area median income. The projects would be able to receive $150,000 per door or per unit, and considerably more for youth and then chronically homeless. The caveat of this is all projects need to be completed within 12 months, and the funding that we receive has to be expended within 8 months. Occupancy needs to be completed 90 days after completion, and the project needs to remain affordable for 55 years and have an ongoing operating pro forma showing commitments for 15 years. I wanted to include the AMI of those individuals who are eligible for this, and so for a one-person individual, they have to have made less than $15,000 a year. So the Center for Human Services have, since their launch with the Youth Navigation Center, have been working very diligently to end youth homelessness within Stanislaus County. and have realized that Project Home Key was a great opportunity to add to our permanent housing stock for youth. So they approached the city with a property at 1208 9th Street to convert a commercial conversion into 9 studios and 5 one-bedroom apartments. The great thing about this project is it's close to the transit center, grocery stores, health facilities, library and pharmacy, as well as a short bus ride to the Youth Navigation Center. On March 28, 2022, the city was notified by HCD of Home Key Round 2 award in the amount of $3,973,353 for the project at 1208 9th Street. There's a breakdown of the project award. The majority of the award going towards rehabilitation, and there is some funding support to help with ongoing operating support for the first 5 years. We have a tight timeline for the completion of this project, so we were awarded on March 28th. We anticipate to start construction April 25th, and then finish construction November 28th for full occupancy by February 2023. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from council members? Councilmember Scudia Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mhm.
Can you hear me? Oh, much better. Thank you very much. Jessica, congratulations to you and your team in receiving this award. It's a phenomenal award, and it speaks to the efforts of the City of Modesto's team in doing good for our community. Thank you. This age group, I was fortunate enough to participate in the point in time count this year, and I ran into many of the individuals that I ran into that I had an opportunity to engage with fell within this age group. So I firsthand saw and witnessed the need in this particular age group for this type of housing. So it's very apropos and it's perfect timing. I also drove by the facility, the proposed facility, and I was kind of curious about parking. I know that it's indicating that it's going to have how many? 9. Where is it? It would house. Regardless, how would we accommodate the parking for the residents of that facility? Because I didn't see any parking on 9th Street.
So there is some parking located in the back of the building that will be
Designated?
utilized for those residents. We do anticipate that a lot of the youth will be utilizing the public transportation, which is in very close vicinity to the project as well.
But there will be designated parking.
There will be designated parking.
Is it zoned for residential currently?
The project is, and I have Steve Mitchell here, but it's in the downtown zone, which allows for residential as well.
Mixed use,
So
yes.
it's zoned
Excellent.
correctly.
Beautiful, beautiful. And my last question is, even though it's identified to include meager rent, nonetheless, rent is a factor in being in this facility. Who will receive the rent income?
So the project will be owned and operated by the Center for Human Services. And so they will be collecting rent from the individuals. And the individuals will not pay more than 30% of what their income is for rent.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jessica.
Welcome.
Right, any other questions from council members? Seeing none, any comments from the public regarding this item 12? Seeing none, comments from council members. Councilmember Canoyer.
Yes, Jessica. I just want to say how fortunate we are to have you. Since you've come on board, I am sure we have, and I would have to ask our city manager, you have received so many grants. You do something to incentivize your the people that work for you to do this. I just can't, I've been on CHCDC for years and HRCL. I just can't remember us getting this much. And I am so proud of you and your team, and I just know that if we look at it, we have helped many many, people who are experiencing homelessness, especially these young people. I was there when they opened that center, and to see some of them, and, I just can't say enough for you and for your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Canoyer. I do have a great team to help execute these projects.
Thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
I just want to echo some of Jenny's sentiments here. I really think that your team and you did a really great job getting this grant. It's $4 million. There's so much need to help youth homelessness in our community. This is critical, and it's just really nice to see, City of Modesto really following through and getting stuff done. It's so well done.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Ditto and ditto to everything they said. I'm not going to repeat it. Just a quick question. How long can they stay once the youth get in?
So it's a permanent housing project.
Okay.
So they can permanently.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I just have one comment also. Thank you, Jessica. I share with you often how much I appreciate you and all that you do to support us in our efforts. I do want to acknowledge tonight that Cindy Duenas is here, and she is the Executive Director for Center for Human Services. And this is a woman who we are so fortunate to have in our community. She has dedicated her life to do this work, and I want to thank you publicly, Cindy. All right, any other comments? Seeing none, we have a resolution accepting the City of Modesto's Project Homekey 2.0 grant award of $3,973,353 for the project located at 1208 9th Street, authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the related agreements. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion. I'll take a motion here, and which one of you made it?
I made it.
Motion by Councilmember Ricky, second by Councilmember Madrigal. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Councilmember Scudia-Brayton. Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Zwollen.
Aye. Carries 6-0, one absent. All right, on to hearings. Item 13. Hearing to consider a proposed amendment to the City of Modesto's Urban Area General Plan to amend 67 acres from business park uses to mixed use, together with a proposed amendment to the Kernan Business Park specific plan to amend 67 acres from business park to the new land use designation of mixed uses 3, property located north of Pellendale Avenue, east of Dale Road, and an amendment of the specific plan change Bangs Avenue from a 4-lane major collector street to 2-lane minor collector street. And welcome for our presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, Steve Mitchell, Planning Manager. Now, that was a mouthful, so we'll try to explain what this is about. So first of all, this is in Kernan Business Park, which is located in the northwest part of Modesto. 614 acres total. It was adopted back in 1997. It was primarily intended for business park uses, but there have been a number of amendments over the years to redesignate parcels for various reasons, commercial, some residential, some mixed uses. So tonight, what you have before you is two actions actually related. One is an amendment to the city's general plan to redesignate the area. And the area we're talking about is 67 acres. It's kind of highlighted in red on those maps. It's basically the southeastern corner of Kernan Business Park. It's an area located south of Bangs Avenue, north of Pellendale, kind of east of Dale Road. You have the two churches there right on Dale Road. This is kind of located just to the east of those churches. 67 acres. So the general plan designates this business park, same as the specific plan. And so the applicants are asking for an amendment to redesignate this area, both in the general plan and in the specific plan, to mixed use. The intent of the amendment is to allow for residential uses, albeit higher density residential uses, or at least medium density, 15 to 16 dwelling units per acre, as well as to accommodate the existing churches, Bank of Stockton, and the Vintage that are already existing in this area. The second part of the amendment to the specific plan involves Bangs Avenue. The general plan was amended some years ago to redesignate Bangs Avenue from 4-lane collector, which it was designated at one time, even though it's a 2-lane street. The general plan for some years called for it to be 4 lanes. We revisited that back when we did the general plan in the last amendment that got adopted in 2019, determined Bangs didn't really need to be widened to a 4-lane street. So we changed the general plan to designate it back to a 2-lane collector street. However, the specific plan was never changed to reflect that. So this amendment is also going to amend that as well to bring the specific plan into conformance with the general plan. So, to date, no, we really haven't received much development interest for business park in this area. The owner did pursue trying to attract business park uses for many years, but was unsuccessful. Current trends in business park really are to allow for mixed uses, and including multifamily residential. That is kind of a trend that we're seeing in modern business parks, and indeed we have some existing multifamily residential in Kernan Business Park. And this general plan amendment, specific plan would facilitate both of that further. And then finally, as I mentioned, the circulation plan for Bangs just brings it into conformance with the general plan. We did do a traffic impact study, determined that basically the amount of traffic that be generated from residential in this area would actually be less than what was originally envisioned with the business park. So there's really not going to be shouldn't be any significant increase in traffic over what was already assumed for this area. And then finally, the development will actually be subject to a staff level approval called development plan review. And all this would have to meet all the standards of the specific plan and other city standards. So with that, we have 3 resolutions here for you. One is a resolution approving the general plan amendment. Secondly, a resolution approving the specific plan amendment. And finally, a resolution adopting a negative declaration for the proposed actions. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions from council members? Councilmember Madrigal.
Related to this in housing, I know we're still waiting on Opticos to continue to finalize the Modesto housing plan.
Mm-hmm.
So since this is new, or will this be counted in what they're doing? And if not, do we still have time to tell them, hey, include this too in your calculations?
Yeah, so the housing plan is really kind of focused on the existing city, kind of the infill areas, and looking at redeveloping sites that are maybe already developed with commercial or residential, but the opportunities to increase housing in those areas. So it's kind of looking at a different piece of the housing puzzle, so to speak. The kind of the outlying areas are really what we're talking about, where you're talking about basically greenfield development. There's no redevelopment here going on. This is pretty much greenfield vacant land right now. So that's kind of a different part of the housing puzzle, so to speak.
Okay, well, worth a try.
All right, any other questions from council members? Seeing none, any comments from the public? Right. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. It's great to be here. Dave Romano on behalf of Gruppe Huber and Sencal Homes. I'm joined by Kevin Huber and Fritz Huber of the Gruppe Huber companies, as well as Nick Whetstone from Sencal Construction and Rubik Built. They came to me late last year and mentioned the prospect of doing what would be unique to Modesto, a kind of a mixed use of 3-story walk-up and 1-story casitas, a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom housing. at this location. And really Bangs Avenue traditionally has been kind of a line between business park and residential. If you look at Fleur de Ville, if you look at the churches that are located there, if you look at Chateau Maison, if you look at Woodglen, it's a natural connection. So they asked me about the site. I came and met with staff. They were receptive. We worked really hard on this project. We talked originally about just looking at maybe the 20-acre property that Group Huber and SenCal were looking at that time. And staff said, you know, we really should recognize that we should just make this change for the entire piece. We should make it mixed use. And that and promoting that to us and making these changes to the documents motivated my clients to go out and talk to adjacent landowners and actually get another 20 acres under contract. And so they're really excited about the prospect of doing something here that's not only high-end, unique, and new to Modesto. So we appreciate all the hard work of your staff to get it to this point. And I know Mr. Huber just wanted to make a few brief comments to you about his company and his interest, and so he's there. Then I'll have a couple of quick comments at the end. Then any questions from you, we'll be happy to try to answer. So,
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Zwolin and council members. Kevin Huber, I'm the CEO of Groupie Huber Company, and pretty excited to be back in Modesto. I was president of the Groupie Company when we built Sundance Lake. Actually worked with Dave at that time, I think 20 years ago, and now we have the youth and energy and the gray hair here, and I was the youth and energy back then. What I wanted to say was just, you know, we've been primarily, this company that was actually split out of the Groupie Company in 1993 was primarily a commercial company. And then about 5 years ago, we started doing single family again. We started building apartments again and doing self-storage. In fact, our most recent self-storage is the one that we remodeled a little over 100,000 square foot industrial building on Caldwell, just west of Tully. And that's been a very successful project for us. And we're pretty sure this will be a successful project for us as well. We're a proud investor in Opportunity Stanislaus. I happened to have lunch with Dave White yesterday, and we were talking about one of his employees, a single mother who was renting a home, and the owner of that home sold the home, and she no longer had a place to be. And so Dave said, you know, we worked with her to find another place. But that's kind of an all too common thing that's happening. In the state of California, we have really a housing crisis. The affordability is really an issue throughout the state. And so I'd like to commend your staff and this council for undertaking this effort to add some additional residential. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have of me about our company or about the project. But if not, I'll turn it back over to Dave.
All right. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question? Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead. Do you want to finish, Dave?
Oh,
and
yeah,
then-
just
and
so
then
with
we'll-
that said, we're both available to answer any questions. This comes to you with a recommendation from staff, a unanimous recommendation from your planning commission. Our next step will be to immediately start working on site planning and move this project forward. So questions for either Mr. Huber or I will do our best to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
So I do have a question for Mr. Huber. First of all, love what you're doing, and the community appreciates it. It's important. Like you say, we're in a housing crisis. But I just don't get the opportunity to talk to developers very often, so here you are. So I'm going to ask a question.
Usually the arrows come in my back, but
No, it's not like that. We're not going there now. What I'm trying to figure out, though, is the world is changing. More people are working at home, and I think that trend's going to continue, as the years go on here. In your designs, have you considered, I love the mixed use, like this is great, I love the direction, but have you considered maybe if, like in parts of your developments, maybe more small commercial, like corner store, coffee shop, kind of little market kind of situations?
It really depends.
Walkable?
It depends on the development. Retail and food service is driven by rooftops. So it may work in this project to have a pad or two. That's why we were excited about the mixed use as to just putting it over to just a residential use, because we won't know that until we get into the final design, but it's certainly possible. I can give you an example in all of the master plans we did in my 25 years at the groupie company, I mean, we had an element of commercial as well as the residential. In this particular project, as I think Dave mentioned, envision really a small village. I mean, so you have kind of the town center with a little higher density, and on the fringes we'll have lower density casitas for rent, actually. So they're single level, where if you're somebody that doesn't want to walk up the stairs, and then probably intermixed with that on a corner here or there, we could have some retail. Retail in general has really been driven lately by food service. Amazon's taken a pretty good chunk of major retail, and I don't think this site is going to be a site that wants to compete with any of the other neighborhood retail centers for groceries or anything like that. But certainly a small food service use or something may fit in.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like small, and less, not really mini mall, like just kind of something small that when people. I really benefit in my neighborhood because I'm within walking distance to a shopping center, right? But I know that in larger cities, and I think Modesto qualifies, even though we're kind of suburban-y.
Yeah.
We're a large city, and I think we need to start thinking a little bit more like a large city. And so I'm hopeful with a person like you with your experience could maybe find a way to consider that. I'm just...
Well, so
one of my big dreams.
One of the things I would like to comment on, I mean, in most of the projects that we've done, I mean, having pedestrian traffic is a very important element. And whether it's been, we were one of the first to have actually separated bikeways and pathways from just the curb and gutter, so you had landscaping in between. We have a project in Stockton right now it's a 100-acre redevelopment. It's actually we're the home for the Stockton Center for CSU, Stanislaus, and actually they're going to be undertaking a $54 million project in that. But that project, we have a 1-mile discovery trail, we call it, and we have employees that constantly walk. There's different stations along that, and so we embrace pedestrian traffic. And the other thing we embrace and that we do in all of our projects is some element of public artwork. So I would envision that this project will have some kind of public artwork. I don't know what that is yet, but as we get into the design, I think you're going to be the thoughts we have going on right now. I think you're going to be excited about what we do there. I know we are.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Madrigal.
Mine was just a quick question. I don't know if you mentioned it before and I missed it. Ballpark, how many units are you thinking or envisioning?
We have 34, a little over 34 acres right now, so I think we're probably, 700? Thereabouts, Fritz? Yes. Yeah, 600, 700.
That's the number I like talking about, like to constituents who, I don't know if you know, but in the past, we've had constituents that literally stand where you're standing during public comment just to say, I'm homeless. What are you going to do to build more housing? Like literally. And so to be able to have some good news, say just last council meeting,
Yeah, I think cities that are embracing this are doing a good job. I mean, we're already seeing the state kind of legislate around cities that aren't doing it, whether that's the ADUs or SB 9 or other things that they're doing. And I think that's going to continue if cities don't do what you're doing.
Okay, 600, 700.
Right. All right, Councilmember Scudia Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hubert, thank you for bringing this project forward. I think it's a very innovative project, and it's a lovely design concept, and it's a good fit for the area. So I think it's going to work. I have seen some of your other projects, Brookside and Stockton, and I see that you spoke to and made reference to the elements with art and foot traffic that I think you could incorporate to this as well. So very much look forward to how that might roll out. I don't think this is a surprise to you or staff, my desire to really, I know that you incorporate the beautification and positive design within the development, the confounds of your development. But I would encourage you to consider the beautification also of the outside of your development, specifically the wall, the south wall that would border the south side of your development and touch the Pennendale Street. This is an opportunity to beautify that side as well. Unfortunately, sometimes when there is a wall that supports a development, the other side of the wall is left to look dirty and unkept, and and that is a very active, frequently trafficked thoroughfare in Modesto. In my travels, I have seen where these sound walls at a very low cost and minimal resources, there's beautification features that are added, such as the walls a certain way, the brick is adjusted to create a design concept on the wall. I just went to a Palm Desert. It was over 100 degrees, insane weather. Nevertheless, what I saw a lot on the street was a design concept with rocks. Not high resources to put into it, no water required, no maintenance required, but it was a lovely design that really made that street thoroughfare enjoyable to look at. So I would encourage you and your team to consider what type of design concept you can include on the south side of that development wall to make that scenic drive enjoyable for everyone to look at.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Escutia Brighton. Dave brought this up to me, and when he brought it up, he talked about doing landscaping between the wall and the road, and I said I've never done a project where we haven't.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So in fact, in Sundance Lake, I mean, the CFD that was there for the maintenance, we actually added a homeowners association to do the maintenance on top of that. So in this particular case, there is the one issue I would bring up, and you mentioned rocks. The world today has changed with our water resources, and so we bought a building in Tracy on Grant Line Road, and the city actually was the landscaping in the city right away was not being taken care of. So we're in the process of actually paying to have that re-landscaped with some drought-resistant plants and some ground cover to make it look nice. We're hoping the city will take care of it. If they don't, we will. That's just, we want it to look good. It's our building. We like to be proud of what we own. And so in this case, I'll commit to you that we'll do something. We'll work with your staff to make sure it's appropriate and that what we do is something that the city will be proud of.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
All right, go ahead. Make
Sure.
it somewhat brief if you can, because we have other council members waiting.
Oh, thank you. Her comments reminded me about something else. Two things: dogs and low carbon footprint, alternative transportation modes or facilities, if you will, like say zip cars or what do you call them? Car share type programs, or I don't know. What is it? Charging stations,
EV stations,
yeah, EV stations, things like that, and then the other one, any kind of dog owner amenities. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, so we envision, I think at least, I think we have 2 dog parks planned within the communities that we have right now, at least in the initial planning stages. Again, we're not quite to the final plans yet. We do include EV charging stations. The incentives for those haven't been as good lately as they were a few years ago, so we're not seeing that being built quite as much. And then on the public transportation and ride sharing, I honestly haven't looked into that for this particular project yet, but we'll take a look at that.
I was being more car share kind of things.
Yeah, car share.
Like the zip cars that they have, or you rent them by the hour, but then you don't own a car.
We can certainly look into it as an amenity that somebody else could bring into the project. It's not a business I would want to get into, but no different than one of the key aspects of communities like this right now is, especially when it's behind, if it's behind a gate or it's multifamily, Amazon delivery is an issue. Where do you drop packages? How do you get them in there and make sure that they're delivered correctly? So we're working on all that, and those will all be elements that your staff will have a chance to review.
Thank you.
Maybe this might be a second site for that Star little robot delivery. I forgot what it's called. That we have already in Modesto, like by Save Mart. Starship, that's what it's called. With whatever, retailer you have down there.
Okay, well, yeah, we'd be happy to talk to your staff about it.
All right, Vice Mayor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to commend staff moving this project. Am I on? Moving this project forward, and I'm hoping you'll have this done by December, Christmas. Correct? What's your time frame on this?
I would say our time frame probably we'll have to work with staff on all the specific planning for the project,
and they will move forward real fast. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, and then of course, we get into infrastructure and land planning design, and then the design of the units themselves into construction drawings. I would say this is a 2023 project.
Towards the middle of 2023 or towards the end, Dave? Yeah, I didn't hear.
Would you
Well,
repeat?
Yeah,
the
probably,
answer?
we may start, there may be some earth moved this year, but most likely, the majority of it will be happening in 2023.
Great, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great
If we can do it
project.
faster, we'd love to.
Great.
As long as interest rates don't go up too far.
All right, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
answers to the questions. So we have 3 resolutions here. The first one is resolution approving an amendment to the Modesto Urban Area General Plan. I did clarify, I already went to the public. This was council comment. Is that correct? All right, was there any other public comment before we vote? Welcome. Right, yeah.
Yes, I do wish to ask something. They are talking about taking Baines Avenue down, okay? Yes, I go to Kaiser Hospital. It's great. However, leaving there, walking like I do, we need the road up Bangs, and we need it up to Sisk. The people that work at Kaiser, lots of them go back up and down that canal. Lots of them like to go up to Costco and Save Mart and all those. They say they have to walk all around, which they do. Years ago, we talked about, or quite some time ago, we talked about putting Bangs, like you said, in a 4-lane. A 2-lane would be good, but at least have a bike lane up through there. Please, because they cannot even go straight up on the side of the canal. At least put a bike lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment on Groupie and Huber. That's the best thing I've ever heard in Modesto. I work with Mr. Fritz Groupie, and what he does is upscale completely. I don't know about the other company, but yeah, if you guys can actually pull it off, that'd be wonderful. It would upscale Modesto. It would bring maybe better stores and people and so on and so forth. Beautify, that's what we want to hear. Beautify, beautify, beautify. That's all Modesto's ever. I've been here since 1962. I've seen some of his projects. I've seen his own property, Mr. Fritz Groupie. So I don't think you're going to go under on this one. I think you just go full steam ahead. Put the money out for something that's good instead of everything else I've heard tonight, which I don't quite understand a whole lot of it. But yeah, so I'm excited. I hope to see it, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Anyone online? I don't have that screen up, so I can't tell. Okay, no comments. All right, going back to council. Any other comments or emotion? And I will read the resolutions.
I was just saying,
Okay, Councilmember Knoyer.
Yes, I just want to say, glad to see Dave back. I enjoy, and this project is probably, I had a really close friend who tried to find a rental in Modesto because they're moving to Idaho, well, whatever. But anyhow, there were 14 people looking at the one house. So they just rented in Idaho because they're moving in a house there. This is so needed. Thank you, planning department. I anticipate a rapid exception of getting this through because it's really, really needed. And thank you so much for having the foresight, sir, to bring this to Modesto. And I just can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
And I will be in favor of this.
Thank you. Any other comments from council members? All right. I have a resolution approving an amendment to the Modesto Urban Area General Plan to change the land use designation of 67 acres from business park uses to mixed use. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Wright, second by Councilmember Madrigal. Will the clerk please read the roll call?
Councilmember Scudia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Mayor Wallen?
Aye. Carries 6-0 with one absent. Second resolution approving amendment number 12 of the Kernan Business Park specific plan to change the land use designation of 67 acres from Business Park to the new land use designation of Mixed Use 3, property located north of Pellendale Avenue and east of Dale Road, together with an amendment to the circulation plan of the specific plan to change the designation of Bangs Avenue from 4-lane major collector street to 2-lane collector street. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Scudia Brayton.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Canoyer. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Scudia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Mayor Wallen?
Aye. Carries 6-0, one absent. Resolution adopting a negative declaration for a general plan amendment to change the land use designation of 67 acres from business park to mixed use, property located north of Pellendale Avenue and east of Dale Road, together with amendment number 12 to the Kernan Business Park specific plan to change the land use designation of 67 acres from business park to the new land use designation of mixed uses 3 in the land use diagram of the specific plan, and to change Bangs Avenue from a 4-lane major collector street to 2-lane collector street in the circulation plan of the specific plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Scudia Brayton, second by Councilmember Ricky. Oh, excuse me, Councilmember Madrigal, I could not hear. All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Scudia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Mayor Wallen?
Aye, carries 6-0, one absent, and thank you very much for being here this evening and for your presentation and the work that you will be doing in our city. We appreciate you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. All right. How about a 5-minute, 5-minute break? Thank you. got it. All right, we will go on to item 14, hearing to consider proposed sewer rate increase for fiscal year 2022-23 through fiscal year 2026-27. Welcome, Mr. Wong.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm William Wong, Director of Utilities for the City of Modesto. And tonight I have before you a public hearing for the Proposition 218 process for the new sewer rates. All right, just a little bit of the background. The city's utility relies completely on its revenues from sewer rates to sustain its operations. We do leverage grants or low-interest funds when they're available. And as a note, we do not use the general fund to service any of the sewer operations. The proposed sewer rate increases will generate revenue to fund all the wastewater system's operational and infrastructure needs. It also allows the city to maintain its current debt service coverage ratio, which is essential to maintain a strong credit rating and financial health of the wastewater fund. And it's important because we are looking to bond finance some of the largest capital improvement projects that we have upcoming. A little bit more background. We did prepare an engineer's report through Corollo Engineers. We have Barter Wells. We have a couple of the associates that actually helped prepare the rate study with us tonight. They did actually do a new sewer rate and fee structure based on the cost of service for the enterprise, which is compliant with all legal requirements of the Proposition 218 process. These results were presented to council on December 7th, which authorized actually approved the engineer's report and sewer rate study and authorized staff to initiate the Prop 218 process. The rate objectives are to keep rates as low as possible, but we also have to continue to provide excellent service for operations and to fund capital projects. We also want to ensure that there is gradual, predictable rate increases with no rate spikes. And essential to our wastewater fund, we want to make sure that we maintain a AA credit rating, which is to maintain prudent reserves and meet debt coverage requirements. Key drivers for this rate change, we do have several capital projects to ensure the reliability and operation of the wastewater system. We also have to meet permit requirements, which are legally required that we have to do. We also want to increase, like I mentioned before, reliability and redundancy of our system so that we can maintain operations 24/7, 365 days a year. We also have to account for inflation. Inflationary costs have risen over the last few years, and today I did read a report that our latest rate inflation rate is about 8%, so 3.5% is a little lower than that. We will also want to make sure that our rates are gradual and predictable, like I mentioned before, that cover our debt coverage ratios and we have enough reserves for emergencies. And we also wanted to update cost of service allocations. Those cost of service allocations are for each customer class based on their system utilization. So we previously adopted rates back in 2016, and a lot of the successes that we've had between those 5 years is we completed 24 capital improvement projects with a total project cost of $122 million. We received over $30 million in grants, so we were able to leverage grants, and actually that doesn't include the North Valley project, which is the water recycling project that the City of Modesto's ratepayers were able to get an SRF loan on behalf of the Del Porto Water District. Del Porto Water District is actually reimbursing the city for those loans. So the strong credit rating allowed the city to qualify for a $35 million Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. We also received $5.5 million for the Roosevelt Park Cross Connection Project, and we are just received notice that we are also receiving a $10 million cross connection project for Pike Park as well. And I mentioned the North Valley project where we sell recycled water. So far, our revenue generated since 2018, or end of 2017, has been $1.55 million, which goes into the sewer fund. Additional successes, we do, the City of Modesto's wastewater system does treat over 20 million gallons per day, which is about 7.1 billion gallons per year. Our average recycled water flows that we deliver to the Del Porto Water District is 4.6 billion gallons per year. We clean on average over the last 5 years, 306 sewer lines cleaned, so that prevents sanitary sewer overflows, and when we do have overflow, we could be subject to fines. So by maintaining our sewer lines, we reduce the city's costs. We do answer about over 1,400 calls per year. Last year alone, we received over 2,100 calls, first calls, and complimentary lower sewer lateral cleaning programs. And those are benefits to the public, to our residential customers. The complimentary lower lateral program is included in their bill, so we do have a call us first truck that goes out in terms of emergency. So the recommended rate increases for the municipal and industrial customers, that's M&I, is based on a 10-year capital improvement program, about $345 million. As you can see, that we are looking at a 3.5% increase over the next 5 years each year, starting July 1st, 2022, and with the last rate increase anticipated on July 1st, 2026. As I mentioned previously, and also noted on the slide, the anticipated inflationary rate in our expenses is 3.5. So the rate increase that we're asking for does parallel the inflationary rate that we're seeing in operations. Also of note too, increases, impacts. The first year, if council does approve the rates, is about 3.3%, all the way up to 3.5% in fiscal year 26-27. The first year rate increase will be about $3.39 per month per account, and we will see increases, gradual increases, all the way up to about $7.79 by the end of fiscal year 26-27. So we're going to go up from $41.78 that we have now to $49.57 per residential account. Commercial rates also have gone up as well too. Their rate increases are about 3.5%. The commercial is based on 100 cubic feet of water use that they use, and then we also have the industrial flows. These are the non-cannery segregation flows, and then we also increase the septage for the septic haulers that dispose of their wastewater in our treatment plant. In comparison to other cities that are nearby, the black bar line is where the rates are now, and should council adopt the rate increase, we will be at the green line, which is slightly above, so City of Modesto does rank about the bottom third of comparable cities in the area. So we do have cannery segregation customers. These are the seasonal customers, the canneries that produce seasonally. They do not go through our normal wastewater treatment process. They actually have a separate line, a cannery segregation line, and so their rates are a little different. However, their monthly account charges have increased, as well as their flow, strength, and solids charge as well. And this is actually a 2.5% annual rate increase, which is lower than the municipal industrial. The reason for that is in the previous 5 years, we did budget a little higher for some anticipated projects that the canneries thought they might be doing, but that didn't come to fruition. So we're able to use the reserves remaining from that rate increase back previously to leverage the rate increase. So the canneries will see a 2.5% annual rate increase. So we did extensive public outreach as part of this Prop 218 process. As you see on social media, we went to Facebook. The city's website did post links with pertinent information regarding the sewer rates. Nextdoor.com, we actually sent out the notice to the sewer rate out to over 46,000 members. Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So we did quite a bit of public outreach. We also had some press releases. Our homepage had a feature reel, and we also are sending out utility billing inserts to our 69,000 customers, and we have done some videos as well too. So there's never again, I said, a good time to raise rates, but the City of Modesto does have a utility billing assistance program, and this program is will be provided to those customers who are eligible. Eligibility is based on enrollment with another qualified program. There's a discount of a straight $35 off each monthly bill. So the average customer bill with water, sewer, storm drainage, and garbage will be about $145.90. The annual budget for this utility billing assistance program is about $1 million, and it's funded through penalties collected through late fees on water service, as well as from the garbage companies. The City of Modesto staff did mail out over 69,000 ballots to owners and tenants on February 25th. And so, as of today, this meeting, we have received a total of 85 protests and a little bit over 1,000 returned to sender. So the amount of protests received is minimal in comparison to what's required under Prop 218. And with that, we do have staff recommendation. There's a motion to determine whether there has been a majority of protests per Proposition 218. If council decides that, we will we're recommending council adopt new rates for fiscal years 22-23 through 26-27 and implement the rates effective July 1, 2022. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions from council. Vice Mayor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple of questions. So you referred to our credit rating, a AA credit rating. That credit rating does affect us getting grants, correct?
It affects us getting bonds and loans. Yes, it
Bonds
does.
and loans?
Yes.
How about grants?
Grants, not so much. We just make sure that we do hit we make the effort to ensure that we hit all the requirements of a grant. But if we do take a loan out, which is different than a grant, we need to show the viability of the city being able to pay back the loans, not the grants. The grants, usually we don't have to pay back.
I understand that, yeah, the grants. So, and my next question is, on our sewer lines, do we maintain sewer lines from the street to the residents if they have a tree root issue and this type of thing?
Yeah, very good question. The City of Modesto's responsibility is to maintain what's in the public right-of-way. Our responsibility does go up to the property line. However, as I mentioned, back to the complementary lower lateral program, we found that we do have a lot of tree roots and other blockages in the sewer lateral. So what we do is we do offer for the residents a complementary lower lateral inspection and cleaning. And it does save the city residents money.
And if a line is broken because of sewer roots, does the city go in and replace that to the residents? Yeah,
for the residential customers, depending on the condition of that line, we can work with the customer, and they would have to, because the City of Modesto does not do work on private property, they'd have to contract with a plumber. We do have a cost share program where the City of Modesto will pay up to 50% of the cost of the repair.
And the reason why I say that, as an insurance broker, you know, I see a lot of issues in sewer lines that other cities don't even cover. And I think we go more than out of our way to really eliminate the issues with homeowners. And I just appreciate the city taking care of that. I know in our residence that my daughter owns, we had an issue with tree root, and the city came out and looked at the line and, you know, did everything they can to help us, and which a lot of cities don't do that, so I appreciate that. And then my last question is, do we have some programs put together for low income and seniors that are on fixed incomes to help them with their utilities?
Yes, so on my previous slide, we do have a utility billing assistance program. We do have finance and utility billing folks available to assist customers. They have to enroll in another program, but then that's the qualification, so we can sign them up to help them with those that need the help reduce their utility bill.
And how are we getting that information out to households?
It's posted on our website, but we also have been using social media to advertise for this. We do have our Water Wednesday, so that's when we do social media postings, and probably every other one we do actually offer the utility building assistance
And
program.
there any way we can put out a flyer or something in the utility bill so they can look at that? So if we have low income or senior citizens that really need help, they'll know who to call?
Yes, we do. In fact, as I mentioned prior, we are going to put 69,000 mailers out there with the utility billing, with the utility bills, and in that we'll have the utility billing assistance program on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. Do you happen to have a copy of what the ballot looked like that you mailed out?
We have it on slide, which slide number?
Was that included in the
Yes.
mailer?
Yes.
The blue, the powder blue?
Yes.
I have one on my desk if you need to see one.
And then there was some text in there as well too, but the text essentially had the billing information from slides. Let's see, that's 9 and 10.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions from council members? Councilmember Madrigal?
So yeah, just following up. So the slide that you talked about where there's a straight $35 discount for qualifying low-income folks on fixed incomes as well. So then, has there been any, do we as a council have to approve if we want to modify that in any way? Or is there anything that was discussed as far as providing an additional discount to help soften the sticker shock or the blow, if you will, of the impact on these two groups of folks, fixed income and low income?
Right. We recently did raise the amount to $35. I believe for a number of years it's $25. We just bumped it up to $35. But if there's any other ideas and if there is a reasonable funding source to help offset this cost, we'd be happy to entertain other alternatives.
Okay, and then just overall, what's the possibility of, we've gotten some feedback from folks that are concerned. What would be the impact if we were to say, hold off on this rate increase, say another 6 months or so to allow folks, adapt to the new normal or continue to maybe recover a bit more from still the lingering impacts of the pandemic? Some folks still haven't fully recovered, and I'm sure I'll have to talk to you about how recovery to the Central Valley is a lot slower than recovery maybe to the rest of the country. At least that's how it feels for many.
It's a very good question. And like I mentioned before, there's never a really good time to raise rates. However, we do have enterprise to run, which is essential for life and safety, right? We have to eliminate the wastewater from homes and businesses. So again, the cost of, the reason for rate increases is to recover the cost of service. This is what it costs to serve the customers money, to serve the customers to remove that wastewater from those homes and businesses. Again, it is never a good time, but however, if we were to delay this, we would probably need to look at our rate study again to make sure there's no major rate impacts. But the other thing that we need to be careful of is that it could affect our credit rating, because if we do not raise those rates, our credit rating might be impacted, which end up costing us more money to borrow money. It costs us more money to borrow the funds necessary for the capital improvement projects.
All right. Councilmember Knoyer.
Yes, I just wanted to ask this, everything that you did on outreach was also done in Spanish, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And I noticed you said that it will not go into effect during fiscal year 21-22. So does it start in July
Yes, ma'am.
22?
It starts July 1st, 2022.
Okay, so not for a couple more months. All right, thank you. We will, I'm seeing no more questions from council members. We will go to the public. I have a card from Melinda Miller. Miller?
Good evening, everybody.
Okay. And this officially opens our public hearing.
Okay,
Welcome.
picture this. You wake up in the morning, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning, beautiful morning. As soon as that wind stops here in Modesto, a lot of you guys have beautiful backyards, you go out and have your cup of coffee. All of a sudden you get a stinking stench because you don't live over on Hatch Road. You don't live on Eustick and Hatch. You don't live on Boise and Hatch. There's about 200 plus, maybe that's not a whole lot to you guys, children that live over there. Wait for the bus in the morning. And we're smelling the water treatment. It's been going on for years. Modesto has obviously never cared. Oh yeah, let's have the infrastructure and all this and blah, 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 make it look pretty around there for the water structure. Like, okay, that's fine. We do need it. We don't need it raised. I'm a senior. I'm on a fixed income. I'm at work. I'm back to work. I'm working again. I'm 70 and I'm working. I'll work until I die. But this morning, I knew this meeting was going to be here. I've had it on my neighborhood watch on my Facebook. And you guys need to pay attention. This is our future. And I asked 49 children, how do you feel about this? We're used to it. That's sad. 49 high school students that go to Downey High School that are bused from over there in that area to Downey. So at least they get to breathe. They don't have to smell that all day long. But we're talking on the weekends. We're talking barbecues. We're talking birthdays. Pay attention. If you're going to make all this all nice and pretty, infrastructure and all this and everything underground, that's great if it works right. But pay attention. Let's stop that stench. Why do we have to have that? We went through the Tallow Works situation for the Shackelford kids. It took forever. Yeah, they were there first. But why are we doing this? Yeah, it's great for the groupie and his little business thing to be here, but that's going to be attached to that. I think you need to figure it out. You guys have been on here long enough. I don't know who's not thinking, but why is that affecting that area when you people don't live there, will never live there? I know you probably go over there once in a while, and I know that's probably the only one. But this morning and every morning, that was at 6:45 a.m. this morning. Nobody should have to live that way. No, those children should not have to live that way. And they go to Modesto City Schools. Oh, great for the electric buses. Whoop-dee. They have to get up, live in that stench, and then go across town and have a breath of fresh air, so to speak, and then they have to come back and do it all over again. Pay attention. Let's fix it. Let's fix what's broken. The stench is broken. We're not broken yet. You know, and as far as our credit rating, we're going to go up so high on paying these fees. Our credit rating as a personal residence are not going to, they're not going to be staying intact either. So you guys need to pay attention. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments from the public? Are there any online? I do not see any hands raised. Anyone in person? All right, seeing none. Comments from the council? Oh, I need to close the hearing prior to? Okay, all right. We will close the hearing now that we've completed public comment. Comments from council members? Councilmember Madrigal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to ask Utilities Director if you could address the smell issue that was raised by the previous speaker.
Speak into that so we can hear you.
I thought I was doing pretty good. How about now?
Yes,
yeah.
Councilmember Madrigal, I can address Ms. Miller's question. So regarding the odors, we did actually, if you recall, last year we actually did purchase a chemical tank and chemicals to help address the these odor issues at the soda plant. So we're very aware of what Ms. Miller brought up in that neighborhood, and we do work diligently to try to address those odor issues. Again, odors do vary depending on the time, year, temperature, but we did install a chemical dosing system to help hopefully knock down those odors. And if it persists, we'll continue to research other ways to reduce the odors of the plant.
Thank you. Councilmember Canoyer.
Oh, I always forget that. I want to say that I want to compliment you, Will, and your staff, because you have, as much as probably Jessica, gone out for so many grants and has done a diligent job, if people just would read, keeping our rates down. Unfortunately, you know, we have to pay to keep everything going. And if you went to your toilet and couldn't flush it, you'd be really upset with us. So anyway, and I just want to comment on the last public speaker. I live on off of McHenry in a senior mobile home park, and sometimes I get the odor all the way over there. So it's not just in your neighborhood, it lingers over the whole city. And I'm sure that they will do their best to try and keep that under control.
Thank you. Councilmember Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I was trying to figure out why it is that the feedback I'm getting from my constituents isn't matching the feedback that we're getting back in terms of the letters. Okay, and I realized, like, as a homeowner, I thought I hadn't gotten a letter, but it turns out I looked at it and I had gotten one. And I think part of the problem here is that the disconnect between what we're trying to do and our constituents, the residents of the city, is that we're sending out stuff that they don't understand, you know, and we're not doing. I agree that we've done a good job of attempting to get the messages across to people, but I don't think we've succeeded. At least that's the feedback I'm getting. And so I find this frustrating. And this is something that you and I have talked about at length over the last year and a half, you know? Yeah, so anyway, that's my comments.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from council members? Thank you very much for your work and your report. It was very well done. I really appreciate you and your staff.
Thank you.
What you've done to get the communication out to us as well as the residents in our community. So this is a resolution adopting sewer service rates effective July 1st, 2022. There's the answer to my question. For fiscal years 2022-23 through 2026-27 in accordance with Proposition 218. Do I have a motion? Excuse me, City Attorney Sanchez.
And Mayor, sorry to interrupt, but just for the record, maybe Mr. Wong or our interim city clerk, just for the record, how many protests did we get?
We received 85 protests.
Okay, so just for the record, that's obviously not a majority protest, and now the council is free to move forward and make the motion.
All right, may I have a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, Councilmember Canoyer, a second. I will make the second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Escutia Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Madrigal?
No.
Councilmember Ricky?
No.
Councilmember Canoyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
Mayor Zwollen?
Aye. So the motion carries 4-2 with one absent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is new business. Consider amending the position allocation for fiscal year 2021-22 to hire 2 additional outreach specialists for the Community Health and Assistance Team, CHAT, and approving a First Amendment to County-City Agency Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Stanislaus and the Modesto Police Department for the county to provide 2 mental health clinicians or behavioral health specialists to ride with crisis intervention trained police officers and respond to mental health calls for service in the City of Modesto for a total amount not to exceed $800,000 to support both programs. And welcome, Chief Gillespie.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Brandon Gillespie, Police Chief. And tonight, I want to talk about the Alternative Response Program, the expansion of it, as the Mayor indicated. And really give an overview, start with an overview of just homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse. As we all know, our Modesto police officers respond to calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those calls include calls related to homelessness, substance abuse, and mental health emergencies. Just kind of put it in perspective, I looked at some statistics, and the California Budget Policy Center indicated that nearly 1 in 6 adults in California experience mental illness of some kind, and 1 in 24 have a serious mental illness that affects major life activities. There's also LA Times analysis that found that 67% of homelessness in individuals in LA had mental health illness or substance abuse disorder. And so I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody, but it was something that I wanted to just talk about to kind of frame where we are in the conversation. And over the last few years, there's been a much more robust discussion around mental health because of just different incidents that have happened around the country, and that conversation is going on. With the limited outreach services of those experiencing homelessness and the deinstitutionalization of individuals with mental illness, police officers are often the first responders, first people to respond to calls for service that involve people with mental illness. And so tonight, as the discussion has gone on nationally as well as locally, really there's 3 different types of responses that have emerged. There's many variations of these that we've seen be put into practice in other communities, but really the 3 alternative response models in general are that of some type of mental health clinician, a mental health clinician with a law enforcement officer, and a mental health clinician with an outreach worker. And these are, so the mental health clinician is just solely a mental health clinician response, and then the other 2. And many cities that we've looked at have implemented this or some type of variation to that. When we look at alternative response models and how those typically play out, it always starts with a member of the community that calls 911, and this is when we're talking about alternative response to police officers. So a 911 call comes in, that's typically how police officers respond. But if that 911 call comes in, the call taker makes a determination on how that response based on criteria. The typical criteria is life, property. They ask a lot of series of questions, whether weapons, whether there's drugs and alcohol involved, that types of thing. And then a certain type of response is deployed. Currently in the City of Modesto, we have obviously our police department, our police officers that respond, non-sworn personnel if appropriate, and those are our community service officers and such like that. And then more recently, we created our community health and assistance team, or our chat team, that is able to respond to 911 calls that involve crimes that don't have any safety-related issues. And then after that, there is some type of, if there's a resolution of the case, it enters some type of other system, behavioral health system or the criminal justice system when we're talking about mental health type of issues. Real quickly, what I want to go over is some of the statistics that where we've deployed our chat team and why we deployed it and what the numbers look like. So we looked at 2020 and 2021, and we grouped quality of life calls for service. Those are typically homeless-related type of calls with illegal camping, trespassing, panhandling, those type of things. And we also looked at calls that, and we separated those. I'm sorry, let me back up. Quality of life calls and mental health calls for service. So anything that had mental health related to it. And we used 50, I think it was like 56 different keywords to try to draw those calls out that were mental health related. And we came up with approximately 19,000 calls. And if you look at 2020 and you look at 2021, a very similar call for service when you look at the totality of it, a little over 19,000 calls for service. And so we looked at those, and then we separated those into calls that had safety-related keywords. We looked at another, I think it's around 56 keywords, and looked at if there were safety-related issues, if there was mention of a weapon, of an active fight, violence, those types of things. And then we broke down those calls. And what I want to point out is that when we look at those calls, the 19,200, or about 19,000 calls on both of those, that equated to about 11.1 of our calls for service in 2020 and about 12.5 calls for service, or 12.5% of the calls for service in 2021. And those are kind of those determinations of why we're developing what we developed are based on these calls for service. So we looked at the 12,000 calls for service in both of these years, and specifically we looked at the data from 2020 to create the chat team, but you can see 2021 just shows that consistency. And we looked at those calls for service that did not have any safety-related keywords, and those were about 12,000 calls for service. And so with that, what we stood up was the chat team. And so that chat team was funded through HUD funding initially, and that goes through the end of this year. And we have 4 chat outreach workers allocated in that funding. Currently have 2, and we're hiring, in the process of hiring 2 more right now. And they respond to calls for service, primarily calls for service that come through our 911 dispatch center, but don't have safety-related keywords associated with those. As mentioned, it's a 2-year grant that ends in this December, funded through HUD. We did purchase, are in the process of purchasing 2 vans, but with supply issues, there's just a delay in getting those, but those are in the process of being purchased, and then their duties respond to those calls for service, as I mentioned. Some initial data we looked, really we went and visited Eugene, Oregon, and looked at their CAHOOTS program, and it reaffirmed what we wanted to do as far as the alternative response is to use our chat team instead of officers to respond for calls for service. And so really when we look back at September to December of last year is when we really started focusing on those calls for service. And as we look at those 3 months, our chat workers spent about 39 minutes on average for a calls for service that they were on. And so then we can start to get into the mathematical equations of how many chat workers do we need, what does that look like. And so I want to call that out as that 39 minutes is their average that they spent on a call for service that they were involved in. So what that breaks down to is if you look at our average number of citizen calls generated per calls for service equals out to about 34 calls per day that would qualify as a chat call. The average time is 39 minutes. So if you look at a chat team, which is 2, we put them out in pairs, so it's 2 chat workers, they can handle on average of an 8-hour day 12 calls per day. Now that doesn't account for any type of self-initiated activity or anything like that they would be involved in. And so that you can start to do that math. And of course, there is proactivity that they do out there. We know where some of the clientele that we're trying to help get out of any type of police contact is, but this would kind of help with that math. And so, all right, so here really what I wanted to key on in the presentation is this addition of 2 more chat workers is going to allow us to continue to handle those calls for service. So again, we pair them in 3, so this would give us 3 2-person teams for our chat program. So moving on to the second half of the presentation, we're going to talk about reinstituting our MCERT program. Is we looked at the calls for service that do have safety-related keywords issued to those. And if you look at both years, we're in the neighborhood of 7,000 calls for service that have safety-related keywords issued to those. So they wouldn't be appropriate for chat. They would need to have some other type of resource. And so what we're proposing and what we'd like to do is to make an amendment to our existing MOU with County Behavioral Health Services to bring back our MCERT program and use some funding that we have in the proposal to contract with BHRS for 2 mental health clinicians to ride in a co-response model with our officers. So behavioral health clinicians or the equivalent would ride out with our officers, and then when calls for service come in that have a qualifying call for service, some type of mental health call where a mental health clinician would be appropriate and help with that situation, then those officers with the clinicians would respond to those calls. It would be important that they can provide safety for the mental health clinician on that type of call, since there would be some type of safety-related issue associated with it. So I think I covered everything in this slide. But they would write out our officers. We did get a grant that we're working on bringing back a 40-hour crisis intervention training. Most of our officers did receive 8 hours of crisis intervention training a few years ago, but we really want to bring back the 40-hour crisis intervention training, and then those officers would be assigned the behavioral health clinicians to ride out with. Those would be the pool of officers. And then, as mentioned, we already have an MOU, and this would be for authorizing the First Amendment to that MOU and extending it through 2023. And just as a side note, that MCERT program it's been approximately since 2017 that we have not been able to stand that up due to staffing and funding challenges. So the average number of calls, that we look at those with safety-related issues, about 19 calls per day, and those include our 5150 or the mental health calls that we typically, it's the code we use to put somebody on a 72-hour mental health hold, and also our attempted suicide calls for service, and you can see those numbers here. So this recommendation before the council tonight is to consider approving a resolution for the position allocation for the 2 outreach specialists, and approving a resolution for the First Amendment to the MOU with the county for 2 mental health clinicians or behavioral health specialists to ride with crisis intervention trained officers. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Questions from council? Councilmember Canoyer.
Yes, I don't know if you can answer this right now, but how much has this affected the average police officer that is answering calls? Do you know if it has a significant impact giving them the opportunity to really go out there and not have to deal with the mentally, the ones that have mental illness or substance abuse, and go to calls that are also very important?
Right, so a very good question, and thank you for that. There's very positive signs already that this program is starting to work. So while it's a small bit of data, and we really looked at September through December of last year, there was 127 calls that were diverted strictly away from our police officers to the chat program. But I would say on top of that, there was a lot of proactivity that they did as well, which could have translated into more calls for service that never actually even reached the 911 center. So our officers, the feedback I have gotten from our officers, that they are very supportive of this program. You know, they would love that all calls for service that we're talking about tonight would be handled by chat or MCERT. And so I've had nothing but good feedback from our officers in our department about our chat program.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Wright, or excuse me, Vice Mayor Wright.
Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. On your MERT program, is that going to be 24/7?
It won't be starting out. So with the funding that we're asking for, it will fund 1 year for 2 clinicians, and they usually work around 8 hours. There will be Ruben Imperial from BHRS and I have had long discussions. What I hope ultimately is to have these MCERT riders. It may start through like a Monday through Friday type of thing, but what I ultimately want to move to, we have 2 squads. Our patrol officers work 4 days on and 4 days off, so there's 2 opposite squads, but to have one of these clinicians on each squad with 7-day-a-week coverage. So we're still working through those details, but as we have more, we could potentially get to 24 hours a day, but right now, it's just 2 clinicians, and they would work probably 8 hours a day.
So have you identified the time periods where you have the most calls for the MERT team would?
Yeah, so we're looking at it right now. Majority of and I don't have a graph or data to look at right now. We're still looking at that, but in talking with Ruben and looking at what we see, daytime hours a lot in the more of the 8 to 5 is what we're looking at starting, because that's what we believe is a lot of our calls for service going to come in, and we'll verify that with data as we continue to gather it. But I want to reiterate that we want to be very flexible with this program too, that if we see a change or we see a need for later hours or different days of the week, that we want to be flexible and be able to put the resources where the need is.
Great. Thank you.
I have a question. When the residents are met with officers and chat team, where do you have any data on where they are dispositioned, where they end up?
I don't have any data tonight. That's something we can look into. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, is basically what's happening to the citizens or the clients when they're at the end. And majority of the time, and that's something data that we can look at. We're seeing that our chat team is not needing to call officers to come make an arrest after the fact, that they're connecting them to services. Right now, they're really focused on homeless. So they're connecting them with services. They're connecting them with the access center, or getting them shelter, or getting them, because our current outreach workers are so connected to our services, they're connecting them with treatment programs or those type of things. So they're making those connections. I don't have a breakdown of specifically what data. That is something that I'll look into getting for sure. I think that would be interesting data.
If not now, in the future.
Yeah.
Sometimes is fire or ambulance called to disposition these patients to the hospital?
Yeah, if needed, that's definitely what they'll call AMR. They'll call fire to come over and take if there's a medical need, for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Ricky, questions?
Thanks, Chief. Quick question on the actual behavioral health workers we're thinking of. Is that something we're sourcing through behavioral health in the county?
Correct. That would be contracted to them on a reimbursement program.
Thank you.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Just not sure if I missed it, but do you have an idea, kind of following up on the mayor's question, do you have an idea of like where the calls are at? Like, are they mostly like people complaining, oh, I see some homeless at a park, or is it mostly residential, or?
Yeah,
like,
a lot. So
where,
with the specific, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of like where are these calls like coming from, and like where does the chat team go mostly? Because I've been asked like, oh, okay, so they just kind of like roam around the parks? Like, what do they do? And I was like, no, that's kind of the heart team. It's a different team. At least that's what I've been saying. I hope I'm accurate.
No, so they're, I wish, I've seen some data, so I'll follow up with that. So I don't want to misspeak, but I definitely think downtown area, McHenry, a lot of where we're seeing, because the current 4 outreach workers are focused on homelessness. It's where our homeless hotspots are, so we see that parks are definitely part of that. Griseta and Enslin, downtown, McHenry, Coffee and Orangeburg, different things like that is where they spend a lot of their time. But kind of backing up a little bit, one thing I want to reiterate with this funding and why I'm excited about this funding is not through HUD, it's through ARPA. So these chat workers would be able to respond to calls for service that would be appropriate but aren't related to homelessness. So if there was somebody experiencing a mental health issue that was not homelessness, they would still be able to respond to those type of calls.
And so just relatedly, apologies, I don't remember exactly the status of the park ranger program, which is very exciting. Are they out yet, and how do they interact, or not yet?
We're very close.
Okay, never mind then.
We're very close, and I think the interaction point of that, I think there would be interaction, because our park rangers can be in the parks dealing with some of the same clientele, so there will be, we'll ensure that there's good communication, so that if there is somebody that our park rangers have come into contact with that would be appropriate to hand off to chat to help with resources, we'll make sure that happens.
So a handoff, I like that. Okay.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions from council members. Comments from the public. I have one card for Patricia. Welcome.
I think it's going to go slightly over 3. I hope you guys forgive me for that, because I won't stop. So I'm here in support of the Modesto Police Chief Gillespie's request for funding for mental health professionals to work in coordination with police officers. I currently work for Turning Point Community Programs and Center for Human Services Youth Navigation Center in Hutton House. My statements do not at all represent either mental health agency that currently employ me. I live with PTSD, and in May of 2020, I experienced a dramatic decline in mental health status when I lost a loved one on May 10th. Her name is Carrie. I would like to first state that as a survivor of domestic violence, it has been the Modesto Police Department that has exceptionally and repeatedly kept me and my children safe from my former abuser between 2015 and 2019. In July of 2020, I was assaulted by Modesto police officers and Stanislaus County Sheriff deputies. Modesto police officers slammed my face and my body into a steel screen door. And as I was pinned between the officer's body and the screen door, the officer thrust his pelvis into my body repeatedly. And each time I could feel him through my pants and through my leggings and dress. When other officers arrived on scene and I heard him tell them, she put up quite a fight. That officer then transported me to the hospital alone. I was arrested for the first time in my life at booking. I insisted I be permitted to stand as my hands were cuffed behind my back as I managed my PTSD this way. 2 or 3 deputies then forced me down into a sitting position on the steel bench. A deputy pinned my face to the steel desk in front of me. I began to make statements that altered between completely rational and absolutely nonsensical. The last statement I made before a deputy grabbed me by my hair was, "You don't know who my God is." A deputy then pulled my hair back to point my chin to the ceiling. I heard my vertebrae pop in rapid succession. The deputy then immediately slammed my head into a concrete dividing wall to my left. The snap of my skull against the concrete echoed in the facility. I was then taken to a cell and left there with handcuffs left on, binding my hands behind my back. By the grace of God, I never lost consciousness. Had a mental health clinician worked in coordination with the department at the time, I may have not been so violently assaulted. An additional note to that is our DEA will soon be replaced. And when she is, police brutality-related convictions will stack up, and so will judgments and settlements against the city. And that's going to be way more expensive than $800,000 a year, which is bare minimum, guys. In February of 2020, 6 months before my assault, I was working at the Zephyr Clark Wellness Center for community clinician Andrea Prado. Andrea was writing a grant to provide mental health services in West Modesto. We found scientific research studies that only proved the need for mental health services in the community she serves. We also found that the very place the services are most needed are the same places that they are most lacking. In what proved to be a devastatingly prophetic statement to my personal life in more ways than I am stating here, I casually stated to Andrea, the problem is systemic. The agencies that are designed to help are the ones that do the most damage. And I would adjust that to sometimes. I reviewed the 2021 and 2022 operating budget and see that the Modesto has prioritized quality of life as a primary goal for the city. The goal is stating improve community safety and quality of life through the combination of prevention and intervention efforts that address safety and its underlying issues. Yet on page 19 of the budget, in a letter to the mayor and council, economic vitality is listed as the primary goal, which is concerning. Within that budget, the City of Modesto proposes to spend $133 million on the initial primary goal of quality of life. Funding for this goal promises to improve safety and resilience of the community members and the attractiveness of Modesto. Here's the problem that I find concerning. The budget lumps together the needs for the most vulnerable in our community with the beautification of the community and investment in community in collaboration with key stakeholders in the community. So theoretically, 90% of this budget can be allotted to beautification and investments in alignment with key stakeholders and still remain true to the budget proposed to Modesto citizens. So I actually have a question in the middle of this. And this is all to wrap up. Please approve the funding. And in subsequent years, I'm going to ask that you give him more. But also, I saw that the rest house, the Vine Street shelter, was approved for funding. And then I heard that it was no longer approved for funding. Is that true?
Ask the city manager to address that specifically. Okay. Thank you.
No, the project is still progressing.
It's still progressing? Okay. So they had prepared for that funding, and to the point where the agency that I was working for, we were no longer referring out because they were preparing for that. So what I want to point out is the pattern of, okay, let's approve this, and then let's pull it when nobody's looking. And that's something I don't want you to do with chat or with mental health clinicians that the chief of police is requesting for the department. It's necessary. And there's people in this community who shouldn't be left behind because we are pursuing economic vitality as a primary goal for this city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public that would like to address this item? Is there anyone online? Edgar, I don't see the... All right. We have Linda Mayo. Welcome, Linda. Looks like
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can, yes.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, as a member of the Alternate Response Committee for Forward Together, I really want to commend the chief and Ruben for collaborating so well together. It's been very impressive for me and very warm-hearted for me to see this happening. It's a long time coming, and they're very caring. And and I also wanted to say that I think this is this effort that he's putting before you is a solid base, and it's critical, I believe, to have a robust MCERT program as part of our alternate responses. So I am totally in support of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, any other comments from the public regarding this item? All right, seeing none, comments from council. Councilmember Wright. Okay, that's all right. I should have cleared my list. Councilmember Escudia-Brayton.
Just wanted to say that it's a very, congratulations, Chief. I think it's an honorable program. It's a program that's much needed, and it's at the right program at the right time. I'm in favor of it and look forward to its implementation and its positive results. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from council members? Councilmember Ricky.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I just also want to echo those sentiments. I really appreciate you listening to the public. I mean, the public, you were here last year when we got, pretty beat down pretty good by people criticizing the way that we do things. And the fact that you were willing to listen to the public and come up with some really good programs says a lot about who you are and who your department is. And that's, to me, what we want to do. We need to enforce the law, but we also need to do it in such a way that's a positive, if that's possible, right? So I think I think all these are great programs. I love the direction that you're going, and I think we're going to see significant improvements as a result.
All right, Councilmember Knoyer.
Yes, I just want to echo Councilmember Ricky's comments. I just have, you listen, really listen. You went out and checked programs and came up with a program that meets our needs. And I just can't believe that we're not going to see improvements as it goes along. And I think you're going to see that your officers are going to see a release or relief in not having to deal with some of these problems, because I'm sure they don't want to and they don't feel that they're capable of doing it. So I just want to say thank you for you and your all the officers that are out there, and I just believe that already we have seen a decrease in what happens to these people who have, some of them, no control over themselves. The next step, and I think it's something that we're all going to have to look at, is where do we place people who need long-term care? We do not have that. I think that will be our next step. Probably not while I'm on council, but I'm hoping that that's what, we need a place for them to go, and not to jail, and not to 72-hour hold, and not to a hospital. So I'm hoping we see that. But congratulations on everything you've done. And Modesto is a very safe place.
Thank you. Councilmember Madrigal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to, first of all, I want to thank the previous speaker for your words and your support and painting that picture about how important this program is. I just wanted to share with you and the council and the public that I participated in this police practice, this activity that the Forward Together committee went through, which was this forced simulation type. It was basically sort of, I guess I'm just going to call it a police simulation kind of experience. And one of the scenarios was, it was me in the, place of an officer dealing with like a teen that had mental health issues that walked out of a Costco with like a toy. And I was given like choices, like, do we tell more officers surround, this kid and escalate, or do I tell one of the officers, go find the parent and try to de-escalate because it's obviously like a mental health issue. And so like I chose the second option, but it reminded me of this, chat program, and thinking with this chat program, now you're taking out that officer so they can go deal with other calls, so we can have dedicated, trained folks that know how to deal with mental health issues to de-escalate and give them the appropriate services. And that's the feedback I've gotten from people in the community. Oh, so this program, you guys dealing with the mental health calls and stuff, so that then the other officers can go take the other calls, for like other, I've heard, descriptions of big crime, violent crimes, other stuff. And I say, yeah. And they're like, and again, I get that. Well, good. And I just wanted to share that feedback with you that I've been hearing about this investment that and this priority that we're making as a council.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? I'll make a brief comment. I want to commend you for being proactive at a time such as this in our world and in our country. I think that it shows courage and strength, and I appreciate you being willing to do this for us. I also want to thank all of the officers in our department. We received a report this morning at Clergy Council from Jason Grogan, who is here this evening sitting behind you. And as Jenny mentioned, we are a safe community. Our crime has decreased considerably, and I appreciate your efforts. It does not go unrecognized, and thank you so much for this effort. I support it 100%. Thank you. All right. Any other comments from council members? Seeing none, this resolution can be combined. This is a resolution amending the position allocation for fiscal year 2021-22 to hire 2 additional outreach specialists for the community health and assistance team. Resolution approving a First Amendment to County City Agency Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Stanislaus and the Modesto Police Department for the county to provide 2 mental health clinicians and/or behavioral health specialists to ride with crisis intervention trained police officers and respond to mental health calls for service in the City of Modesto, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the agreement. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Wright, second by Councilmember Madrigal. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Scudia Brayton. Aye. Councilmember Madrigal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ricky. Aye. Councilmember Knoyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Zwallen.
Aye, carries 6-0. Once again, thank you very much. Are there any matters too late for the agenda? Seeing none, I am calling this meeting of the City Council to be adjourned.
Get some water.